few more participants have actually arrived now and will now start with our webinar. May I please shortly introduce myself. I am Armin Ortmann, LuraTech's CTO, and presenting here with me today is Helmut Schünemann, our head of sales. Two brief hints, technicalities. As you may have noticed, all participants, apart from the presenters, are muted, but you can enter questions in this questions field in the GoToMeeting software, and we will try our very best to answer questions in the course of the webinar or after the webinar. Experience shows that we do not always manage to answer all of the questions, as some can be pretty detailed and difficult. We will then get back to you in the aftermath of the webinar and send you an answer by email. And of course, anytime feel free to contact our support through the support email or direct questions towards info@luratech.com, and we will respond to you. The second thing is, at the end of the webinar, we'll show a quick questionnaire with a few questions. So please let us know how you found the webinar, whether it was informative for you, and help us to improve the quality of these presentations. Okay, that said, I'll hand over to Helmut Schünemann for the presentation. I'll later get back with a quick software demonstration. So, Helmut.
Yes, thanks, Armin. Also a very warm welcome from my side. My name is Helmut Schünemann. I'm responsible for Dockyard sales inside LuraTech, and I want to lead you to the topic of our webinar. Dockyard, you may know, is a production platform for scan service providers or for mass management of documents. The topic is daily routine in the scan service business. We all know at the month end it's a horrible time for those who have to prepare or create the invoices to the customer. Even it should be normally a lucky task to create invoices, because this brings in money in our bank account and profit to the company, but daily practice shows that it's totally different normally. And the reasons for it we can see on the next slide, please, Armin. The situation we currently see at customer side is normally as here described. All processes are controlled by manual paper tally sheets. And this means every batch, every bunch of documents has a leading paper document, and every one who has to process a single step in the whole job has to assign his name and what he's doing and the time he started and the time he has ended, and all these informations have to be collected manually from any single person in the company and transfer this handwritten information into Excel sheets. And I want to make clear that it's the plural, not one Excel sheet, it's several Excel sheets for every day, for every week, for different jobs and whatever. It's a huge amount of time that's necessary to capture all this information in a form that you can make a report or extract data for creating of invoices. And the next point is all these information are a source for errors, because somebody forgot to sign in the time when he has ended his task, and somebody has to keep in mind, oh, how long should it needed, and is writing in a number which might be right but normally should be wrong. So these data are not really correct, and you have several Excel files even due to the fact that during the automatic processing, the system will create information and write it in several files, maybe comma-separated files or Excel or whatever, where also information is included which is necessary for creating the invoice. So this means, in the end of the day, a huge amount of time is necessary to collect every data that is necessary for creating the invoice, and it's a source for errors. So how can Dockyard solve this problem? How this technically may take place, we will see in the next slide. Dockyard, as a production platform for scan service providers, has a very nice feature. That means every task that will be run under Dockyard is automatically tracked, and the timestamps are automatically written in the database in every single step. No matter if it's a manual task, it's an interactive task, or it's an automatic task from a module that creates information for invoicing. So, so without any errors, the system collects this data and stores it in the database, because before you start an action, you press the start button, and if you have finished it, you have to press the complete button, and without having pressed the complete button, you cannot go to the next task. So this is absolutely clear, and you cannot make mistakes and have wrong data in your database. And this is done from several clients and modules, and this we will see on the next slide. Thanks. If we go to the starting point of any job, you have a goods received client. The paper comes in from Korea, and you have to check in the material into the system, might be pallets or boxes or whatever, and the time you need to register all these incoming goods in the system will be tracked from this goods received client. We all know that the paper preparation for scanning is the biggest task in scan services, and normally the systems which are used to process the data automatically don't have any functionality to track this time that's needed for paper preparation. And with our so-called track and trace client, we have the same procedure as described in the goods received client. You check in the box that you will prepare for scanning, and if you are ready with preparing, you press the complete button, and the information, how many times it was needed for this, is automatically stored in the database. Same procedure if you are doing manual data capture or correction of data, and also if you are doing a quality assurance for the whole batch, or for a percentage of the batch, maybe 2% or 10%, it's also automatically tracked, because the system registers when did you start to work with one batch, when did you stop to work with this batch, and when will you start with the next batch, for example. All this is automatically stored in the database, and if you have special modules that have to be used for part of the production, part of the batch, for example, only a certain percentage of the documents have to be created as full text searchable PDFs, and the rest will export it as TIFFs, for example. Then you have the number, how many pages are converted into PDF, and you have also this absolutely necessary information for invoicing in the same report together with all these other informations, and this is done by only one fingertip. So you have in less time than a minute you have all information that's necessary for creating the invoice. And if you compare this with the daily practice we normally find on scan service providers, this is a huge step, and you need much less time than before for creating invoices. So I think what we have introduced here should be shown in a short demonstration. Armin, will you take over, please?
Yes, of course. Just a quick second here. Okay, so what we have prepared here is just a few samples for this Dockyard job. We're looking at the Dockyard cockpit here, which is kind of the dashboard, the control panel for the whole system. This is a demo virtual machine. I have a Dockyard system running in the background, and we have set up this workflow which reads a set of TIFF scanned invoices. You must excuse, they are in German, but you probably understand the structure. So you do have addresses and invoice numbers. The invoices are identified by barcode, and of course you have sums due. And in fact, we have, along with these invoices, we already have a database which is to match against the scanned invoices. The invoices are run through barcode recognition and are split by barcode, and in the Excel database that comes along with the job, the barcodes should identify the documents, and they should be checked against them. I know that we do have a few glitches in there, and therefore we are simulating the process of consistency checks that are automatically done, and if the check succeeds, documents are passed along this lane here. Otherwise, we need to check. Actually, we are checking all documents that are not single pages for failures in splitting them by barcode and other glitches. And later on, we do have a second station where, for things that could not be identified properly, we can enter additional data manually. So if for whatever reason an invoice is not in the database supplied, we can enter its data. And that gets processed further. Of course, we're at LuraTech, so we're generating MRC compressed PDF output from the TIFF scans, which of course does benefit from the from our patented compression. And we also generate standard reports per batch, which I will also refer to quickly later in CSV, i.e. Excel format, and in a custom XML format. Okay.
You should spend a few words to the pre-processing area.
Ah, yes, right. We do have one of the modules here which track manual pre-processing, and what we do here is that we simulate the scanning. So I don't have an actual scanner connected to this machine. You've already seen I do have the scan TIFFs present already, but we'll run a quick script that moves the scans into an input folder and thereby mimic the process of scanning the documents. But the first thing to do is to really log on to this. This is actually the track and trace client, so it's logging on to this station modeled in the workflow. And I'll now generate another batch. Okay, and check it into the system. I'll run the script that simulates the scanning, and then I'm done here. And what you see is
by
that
pressing the complete, excuse me, Armin, and by pressing the complete button, we have the timestamp in the database. How long did it take to process this step? And this is an example for every manual step, also for paper preparation or goods receiving.
Right, exactly. And you may have noticed, I hope it is updating quickly enough through the online conference system, that this third batch is now also running, and that means that probably a few documents are now showing up for these check splitting and keying work steps. Let's check. I'll go to this quality assurance client and connect it to this work step. Okay, and directly I see 3 instances of 2-page documents. I only see thumbnail previews here, but I can also inspect the details here. That looks okay. It bears the barcode on the first page. But when I go to this one, which is supposed to be the same document, I see, well, yes, the barcode has been blacked out, and this number has not been recognized correctly, so I can now manually fix this and enter the number here that the barcode should have represented. And then I see, okay, this one's not in the list imported from the Excel database in the first place, so I'll have to generate a new item here, which I can quickly do manually. And for these other 2 ones, they look okay from what I already see in the thumbnails. They are 2-paged invoices where the actual list of items invoiced spans 2 pages. So I'm done here. And let's check what remains to do in keying. Ah, yeah, I now have to enter the values missing for this item, which were obviously not present in the database. So let's check. The list of suppliers is pre-populated, so I can take this one with the nice German umlaut and enter the date of receipt, which is 30th of September 2011. That's this one up here. It's entered in this quick notation without any separators. That's the invoice number. That's down here. And the actual date of the invoice, as opposed to the date it was received, is 28th of September 2011. And then let's check for the invoice total. That's down here. So it's 410 euros 55 cents. And then I'm done here as well. Finished. It confirms. And a little more processing, of course, ensues. And finally, the documents are generated, and the job is, or the batch is finished. Just a quick peek into the output folder shows that this CSV file has been generated, and for example here you see the document whose values I've just entered, and you see that the system, for example, has converted. Oh, you see, I made a glitch here. It's not 410. Ah, yeah, I see. I took a German comma separator as opposed to the American point separator that would have been required here. So you immediately see my problem here as well. Anyway, that's the kind of data from such a process that you can generate as well. But that's not what we would actually want to focus on in this webinar, because we are aware that many systems offer you this kind of functionality already. But what we have here is that I can, in the Dockyard cockpit, go to this Generate Report menu entry. I can select this job as it is still running, and then I can select a time span. You see I can select an arbitrary time span here, but let's just say this month, for example, as a shortcut. And I can generate a report that directly details what happened so far in this job. So what we see is that we have 3 batches. Well, 2 I have prepared beforehand, as you see here, more or less over lunch. The 3rd one has just been run. What you also see here, I did enter an SLA deadline for this job, and oops, we're already over the deadline, so you can directly see that that's problematic somehow. You see the gross time elapsed. You see the job is not finished yet, but it's been running at the time of this report for almost 2.5 hours. And you see altogether we have 84 invoices processed with 90 images, as there are per batch. There are 2 double-sided invoices in there. You see the amount of time spent for scanning, which is actually not that much, but with only 30 pages in this small example, 30 pages per batch, that's probably not such a big surprise. And then you see per batch, the batch title up here, you see a detailed breakdown of how much time has been spent, for example, in the check of the splitting and in the keying, and you also see a detailed report of which items were actually processed. So of the 30 pages and the eventual 28 PDF document in this batch, 4 documents were routed through the splitting check. We saw that. I mean, 3 documents came in, but we made them 4, so eventually 4 documents were acted upon in that step. And you also see that 1 document with actually just 1 page was processed for 25 seconds in the keying in that batch. And as the material is actually really the same for all 3 batches, the numbers here don't really differ. And finally, you see a sum total over all 3 batches. So you see 12 invoices in splitting with an overall time of 2 minutes 27 seconds. And so on. Of course, the numbers and the times here are really small, so please understand that this is really a demo system running in a virtual machine, and we explicitly tailored it so that we can run through this quick test in the course of the webinar. Of course, it is generally geared towards a production environment, and you can easily run thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s of documents through this system at high speed. One thing also noteworthy is that this general reporting functionality also supplies an export to a CSV file. So you can also import this data directly into Excel, and for example, with a few Excel macros, you can probably directly interface with what any accounting system you have in place already.
Armin, let me please add a few more words to this report. Please apply again.
Okay.
If we have a look at this report, if you go to the bottom, please, the information we have in the bottom might not be really thrilling to you, because an automatic system can generate this data. Normally should. But what makes this report outstanding is, if we go a little bit more to the top, we see that steps which are completely out of automatically processing are also collected in this report. So we have the time of the scanning process here. In no other system you have the statistical information from the scanning software inside of your processing system, data processing system, and you have to create an interface or whatever, or a different source for data is needed to have all information which is needed for invoicing. And not only for invoicing, also for recalculating the job. You have a contract with a customer, and you calculated in a certain amount of manual tasks, and how many effort do you in total need, so you can only with one fingertip check if your job is earning you money or burning your money. So this is one of the aspects that makes this report really outstanding and differs as from all other suppliers on the market.
Mm-hmm. Also, once again, you can enter basically arbitrary dates and times here, so you can really drill this down to a period of, I don't know, 1 minute is the minimum here. Actually, we don't really check seconds, but for example, you can really tailor the reports to cover individual shifts or extra shifts and whatever. These are only shortcuts, so you're not bound to these kinds of values. Yeah, for example, but they automatically adjust the dates here. So this week goes from Monday to next week's Monday. And you also have the ability to report not only on a job, but also on a person. So I ran the clients here as user Bob, and if I check that, I see, okay, Bob worked on this job. No, he actually worked on the job for the German webinar as well. Ha! All right. So the Rechnungen, that's been the job for the German webinar. I didn't delete it from the database, so it shows up here. But what we just did is the invoices for this webinar right now, right? And so you see all the items listed here where Bob was concerned during this day. Okay? Helmut, anything I forgot?
If you take in no, just one point to one information to point it out a little bit more. If you compare these only one or two clicks to create the information and compare this with the actual practice, which means that every day one or more person are sitting 1, 2, 3, 4 hours or more in front of a PC and tipping in the data in different Excel sheets, it's rather clear that you have a real cost cutter at this site by using Dockyard in production. So this is really worth to mention that with Dockyard you are protocolling in, the needed information by doing it and not by putting data in papers and collect this in a second step manually for invoicing. So this is a huge step forward in scan services if you use Dockyard here. Okay, that I wanted to add to the presentation. Mm-hmm. I mean, I see the first questions are arriving. I'm not sure if it's a little bit longer in the chat. The question is, how can I make sure that any needed information in any case will be part of the report? How can I make this sure?
Okay, let's...
Because in different jobs I have different items for as basis for invoicing. In one it might be pages, in the other one it might be files or whatever. Please explain how we can make this sure and how we do this inside Dockyard.
Okay, I hope I understand the question correctly. As you already mentioned and as we just saw, the interactive clients, especially the QA client here, you simply connect it to the job and the system knows what you are working on. So at that end, you do not have to start or stop or check in for anything explicitly. It's implicitly clear. If you say, I want to do the keying for this batch and that job, then what you get is the number that shows up here, let's say. Okay. The other thing is, you may have seen this here, and it may be a bit confusing, that here invoices and files and sheets and pages are mentioned. We need to quickly explain that files and pages are things that the Dockyard system counts by default. So if you write 28 PDF files, well, it says 28 PDF files. Or if you read in 30 single-page TIFF scans, well, then that's 30 pages. But these two item types, invoice and sheet, they have been entered for this job explicitly as items in this structure. So the batch is made up of invoices, and every invoice is made up of a sheet. And that can be counted by these modules, and once you enter such items, whenever an item is captured here, that is directly counted and ends up in the report. Okay, so once you have
in the configuration an extra item, for example a box, then the system will also count boxes.
Right. Right, if they show up in some meaningful way at one of the workstations. But that's then it immediately checked and becomes part of your report.
Okay.
So there is some dynamic as to what explicitly, also as you have seen, all the individual work steps showed up in the list of what's been done per batch. So there is some dynamic adaptation of the report to the structure of your job, but on the other hand, the general overall structure of these standard reports is somewhat fixed, and you can capture additional data in these CSV files and other things, and we can of course support you. For example, in the German webinar there was the question as to the number of index values that have actually been captured for a job, and yes, we can track that. Once we have a specification which index values should be captured, whether all of them should be captured or whether only those that have been modified or entered manually should be captured, we can keep track of that as well, but that's not in the scope of the standard reports. It's still some kind of custom work involved.
Should be more questions.
What about the question concerning the capture and recognition? The question, yeah, I don't want to explain it all. The way I understand it, of course, this is a simulated case where you do have a database that contains most of the data, the relevant data actually pertaining to the forms processed here or to the documents processed here already in an Excel database. That's just one possible case. We do supply OCR technology and we do supply some recognition technology along with Dockyard. So if you want to extract data such as barcode values or invoice numbers or document titles or sum totals from the document, that's also possible in Dockyard, but it requires our form recognition technology, which is simply not in the scope of our webinar. But if you're interested in that, we can of course give you a dedicated demonstration and even show you examples based on material that you supply from your everyday work. There are currently projects running with our customers where this technology is applied, for example, to evaluate barcodes and checkboxes and extract key data such as usernames or customer numbers or reference numbers from the documents. And that's also freeform technology, so it would work on lists spanning multiple pages and documents having different numbers of pages.
Yes, many thanks for this explanation. I mean, if you would please so kind and show the workflow again in the cockpit, I would won't explain why we elect these examples for this webinar. We wanted to show that in any case the system collects data for the report, even if it's a manual task with this pre-processing step, tracking the scanning time, and also doing interactive work with clients with the check splitting and the keying, and that we have all the data that might be interesting for an invoice. Here we have normally the number of invoices as base for the invoice, but on the other hand it might be also an item, how many invoices you have to add the data in the system. That could also be an item in the invoice, and therefore we collected this example. We can do anything with this system, and can also have more complex workflows. For example, after the check splitting, we can also reprocess the new document we have created by hand in the quality assurance client. But this is only an example to show you how it goes and how it works more general. If we have too complex example here, we might lose the audience. Mm-hmm. So that was the reason why we elected this example for the topic of the webinar. You can do much more and much more complicated things with the system.
Yes, certainly. You might also want to check out the recordings of our previous webinars. In some cases, I think we have demonstrated the recognition technology and other features as well.
Yes. In June we did a dedicated webinar concerning our form recognition and showed in different cases how this would work, including double-blind data entry and anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let me check quickly. I don't see any further questions right now. So, Helmut, do you want to continue with the presentation?
Yes, I think we should do a short summary of what we have demonstrated and what is our message to the market. I started with this description that the normally lucky job to send invoices to the customer, but the actual practice turns it into a worse task that needs a lot of manual tasks and collecting information from different data sources, and this might cause errors and anything else. What we want to make sure and bring you a little bit more optimism in using Dockyard is, if you use Dockyard, the report and the month end doesn't include any horror anymore. It's really a lucky task to create the invoices. It's done by fingertip. It's done in an extremely shorter time than before, and the overall summary is, if you use Dockyard, you have only lucky and happy employees.
Okay. That's a great way to end this presentation, I think. Of course, once again, we will remain available for all detailed questions. If there's anything we didn't answer in the or didn't address in the course of this webinar, we'll be happy to answer emails or phone calls, so contact us if you would like to know more. As we already said, there is a lot more to show. We would certainly like to show you detailed examples based on your everyday use cases and based on your sample material. And once again, please also take a minute or two to answer the questionnaire at the end. And that's all there is from my side. So goodbye, and hope to see you again and some other webinar, or at least to have you again as guests in some other webinar soon.
Yes, many thanks for your interest and the time you have spent it. Hope to see you again soon. Please don't hesitate to contact us for any question that you might have. Thanks and bye-bye.
Goodbye.